Listeners, beware. This podcast contains themes of the macabre and does not shy away from the details. Our content is graphic and our language is colorful. We might not be your cup of tea, so listener discretion is strongly advised. You have tuned in to The Killer Tea, a podcast hosted by two best friends with a proclivity to decipher the deeply demented minds of murderers.
Welcome to The Killer Tea, Episode 3, where we will be talking about Richard Trenton Chase, the Vampire of Sacramento.
We're your hosts, Chelsea
and Christina,
and our very special guest,
Me, Tara.
Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Are you ready to talk murder to me and Chelsea?
Always.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited that you're on this podcast with us today.
You say that now, but just wait.
Trigger warning, this episode will feature themes of cannibalism, sodomy, and infant death.
And a little bit of necrophilia.
And killing puppies.
And basically,
Don't listen to this
don't listen to this podcast. This is a fucked up episode, guys.
This little peach.
Yeah, I picked a great one for you guys,
You did.
didn't I?
Oh my god. Get ready, folks. Hope you wore your brown pants, because there's going to be some shitting going on.
So, Richard Trenton Chase was born in 1950 to Richard Sr. and Beatrice Chase. Not a lot is known about his parents. His father was in the military, and we know that his mother saw 2 psychiatrists, so that's promising.
Oh, did she? I could not find that information. I have
Very
my
little.
own hypothesis that we can touch on later, but I didn't realize she actually saw a psychiatrist.
It's recorded that she saw 2, but we don't know what she suffered from, but clearly Richard is fucked up, so...
Go ahead. What happens next?
So Chelsea already gave your trigger warning, but he was pretty messed up. Started out early childhood. He showed all signs of the MacDonald triad. He set fires, wet his bed, and killed animals before he was 10.
Well, like Tara touched on, the MacDonald triad is a triad of sociopathy or psychopathy. And there are 3 signs in this, which is bedwetting, animal cruelty, and setting fires.
And so far, on each 3 of these episodes, every murderer that we've had has suffered from all 3 of those, I believe.
No. Gacy did not torture animals or set fires that we're aware of.
He was a friend to the
He
puppies.
did. So all 3 of them had bedwetting problems then.
I found a random fun fact.
Yeah.
You know, because we like fun facts, right? This was one of the first cases to use FBI profiling.
Oh, was it?
It was. One of the first. Not the first, but one of the first.
One of the first. That's interesting. FBI profiling is absolutely one of the most beneficial techniques that there is out there.
Yeah, Robert Ressler really knew what the fuck he was doing.
Clearly, Chelsea and I are like fucking wrestler fangirls because anytime we have the opportunity to talk about him, we're like, oh my god, So anyways, we think that something's fucked up with Mom.
Clearly.
Yes.
But how was his childhood regardless of that?
Well, I mean, his father was known to be abusive, but other people will say that they were a very stereotypical 1950s family. So was he abusive or was he just a physical disciplinarian? Because I feel like in the 50s, physical discipline was the way you disciplined your children.
But I feel like they probably took it too far, considering
Probably.
the state that Richard Jr. was already in.
I mean, it's very possible that his father took it too far, but I mean, I guess we'll never really know.
I mean, he was military, so they were strict, and some military kids don't take well to that.
Looking at the obvious signs of mental illness that he has and the probability that his mother had mental illness, it's very possible that his father was just increasing the damage there.
Something to be known about what he's going to be diagnosed with is actually
Genetic.
So it's a very
real possibility that something was going on there.
He was immensely torturous and cruel to animals throughout. This was before he started taking drugs. This was
Yeah,
something
this started
that
when he was
existed
10.
in
He would kill
early
the family
childhood.
cats, kill the family dogs, kill birds,
catch
rabbits,
rabbits,
catch
yeah.
rabbits. I mean, real sadistic shit we're talking about.
I mean, boatloads. He hunted animals, and when he would hunt them, he would mutilate them. He was obsessed with their blood. Again, and this is stuff before the drugs really came into place.
Well, it doesn't help that he started drinking when he was 10.
And not only drinking, but smoking marijuana too, and which can also trigger some mental illnesses. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about his teenage years. We know that he began using drugs and that he was drinking heavily while he was in high school. I mean, we're talking young teenage years, which when you're developing your brain has a
Greatly
huge
impacts your
It
development.
really does.
And taking LSD does not help,
No.
which he was a huge fan of.
So as a teenager, he didn't have an aversion for girls. He was actually not super social, but selectively social.
And he was heterosexual. We know that.
And he got along well with young teenage girls. He was able to form not meaningful relationships, but attempted to form some relationships. However, he found out that
ED hurts.
he had erectile dysfunction and was impotent.
And this caused a lot of problems with his relationships, that his girlfriends, you know, at first were fine. And then after a while, the erectile dysfunction became a problem for them.
Well, yeah, in high school, you want that dick.
I mean,
You want your dick to work.
You said it.
It's a sad story when your
What's
dick doesn't
interesting,
work.
though, is that he actually reached out to a psychiatrist to try to get help
Of
for
his own free will. It wasn't
Yes.
forced upon him.
with this erectile dysfunction, and the psychiatrist told him that he had repressed anger issues and a possible mental illness, but he never actually received treatment or counseling or anything. He just got a diagnosis and that was it.
He later discovered that he could get it up after a violent act. Not a good sign, ladies.
No. So he moved out of his parents' house at 18, and that kind of is where our story...
Really picks up.
Yeah.
It just goes downhill from here.
He was actually hanging out on the front yard of this couple's house, and they went outside and started talking to him and ended up inviting him to live with them.
As you fucking
As
do.
you do.
To a complete stranger.
After a while, though, they kind of became disturbed with his living habits. He would frequently walk around naked.
I mean, I can't
and-
fault you for that.
I mean, and was always high or drunk, and he actually boarded up his bedroom door and then cut a new door in his closet so people could, quote unquote, not sneak up on him.
Well, and his roommates also said that he had started talking to himself. This is also, I believe, when he thought that the plates of his brain were shifting. So he shaved his head for a short time so he could watch the movement.
So Chase ended up, his roommates had enough.
Oh,
were like,
yeah.
This is fucking weird.
Well,
We're done.
What's even crazier is they tried to get him to move out, and he flat out refused, so they moved out.
So in his early adulthood, his parents actually split and were living in separate households. So he attempted to go to college, obviously didn't go well. He dropped out and moved back with his mother. He quickly started to think his mother was poisoning him,
Yeah.
putting poison in his food, something with Nazis. I don't know, he was real messed up. But he started refusing to eat because of, you know, mom poisoning you. His father started noticing his worsening behavior and ended up getting Richard an apartment on his own.
In November of 1972, Richard actually went on a trip to Utah, and he was arrested after having multiple traffic violations, and his mother had to come and bail him out. He actually had $500 in fines, which in the 1950s
was so
That's a
much
lot.
money.
so much
so
money.
much money.
And she had to take him home. So he was at a party in April of 1973, and he fondled a girl at a friend's party, and when he was asked to leave, he went out to his car, got a .22 caliber handgun that he had bought, and came back in and was threatening people with it. The police were called, and he was promptly arrested.
And then later released, like you do.
Yeah, his father bailed him out that time. So, you know, we're just doing really, really good there with our...
His family, his whole entire family failed him miserably. They're noticing all this strange behavior, these violent mood swings, all of this crazy stuff that's going on in his life. And his dad's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with you, so I'm just going to pay for you to live in an apartment.
Honestly, at this point, I think his parents are attributing a lot of his behavior to his drug use. And they are probably just thinking like, oh,
it's a phase.
It's a phase. He needs to just get his life together. He's on LSD. This is a problem.
Spoiler alert, it's not a phase.
So this is when he moves to LA to live with his grandmother. And this is where his odd behavior really, really starts to pick up. He would talk to himself. And he would do this weird thing with oranges. Tara, you want to tell us about the oranges?
So he thought that he wasn't getting enough vitamin C because, you know, people are poisoning your food and you're not eating it, so you're losing weight. So he thought that if he took oranges and placed them on his head, that he would absorb through apparently osmosis the vitamin C. And I don't understand the oranges.
Did he cut the oranges?
I honestly, I'm just picturing he's wearing like a juicer as a hat, and he's just squeezing it.
Remember the movie Little Nicky, where the devil had like titties on his head?
Actually, in one of the podcasts I was listening to, his grandmother was reported as saying that she came downstairs and heard Richard talking to himself, and he was saying, "You're a good boy, Richard. Yes, you're a good boy." So who the fuck was he talking to, first of all?
Himself. No, you know what? It was probably the Nazis.
Well, when his grandmother was like, no.
She sent him back to Mom.
She's like, you can go back to your mother's house because I'm done with this.
Much.
In 1963, he continued to see a number of physicians for his phantom head injuries and stomach aches. And then one time, he went to the hospital claiming that his blood had stopped pumping and somebody had stolen his pulmonary artery.
Yeah, he was screaming at people in the hospital.
As he's getting older, his mental illnesses are multiplying and worsening. So now we're talking about signs of hypochondria.
I mean, that is almost, at this point, we're like almost past hypochondria.
Yeah.
Someone stealing his pulmonary artery, that's not like a known medical disorder. And usually people with hypochondria are talking about actual mental disorder or physical ailments, but they're exaggerated.
So, but that's what I mean is people were like, oh, he's a hypochondriac.
Right.
But most hypochondriacs don't think that their plates of their head are moving and that someone stole their pulmonary artery.
Definitely moved past normal hypochondria.
And we're entering into schizophrenia.
He's still taking LSD. He's still smoking marijuana. Those are not helping.
Yeah. Well, he was put into the American River Hospital in Sacramento, and the doctors were trying to figure out if he had a mental illness or if he had drug-induced psychosis, because with drug-induced psychosis, they can fix that. It can get better with no drug use. They can help him get better. But with schizophrenia, that's a little bit harder. Well, his mom wasn't too happy with this, and she came and removed him. Again, his parents completely failing him.
Well, again,
and it just gets worse from there.
I think it's because she knew that she had schizophrenia, and then if he was diagnosed with it, that things were going to start being pointed towards her and her not being medicated.
I mean, it's very possible, but I mean, we don't know. His mother might have been medicated. I mean, there's not a lot.
Yeah, there's not a lot of information.
There's not a lot to know on her.
That's why I think she reacted so badly to him seeking the help that he needed.
It's very possible.
In 1975, he was actually involuntarily institutionalized for blood poisoning because he had been injecting himself with rabbit's blood.
Well, and that all starts because his father went over to his house, I think it was, weekly, and would have dinner with Richard, make sure he wasn't completely isolating himself, which, can I just point out that if his father was that abusive, I feel like his father maybe wouldn't give that much of a shit.
Yeah, wouldn't give that much of a shit.
Well, I feel like he wasn't extra abusive. I think that he was
just very strict.
He was just strict, and because of the precursed potential mental disorder from his mother's side, it just set him off.
Well, he went over to Richard's apartment because you have to remember, like, he lived on his own at this point. His parents just helped him pay his bills.
Yeah, he's never
had a job. He's never worked. So his father is over there and notices that Richard has all these rabbits. And Richard just tells him that they're for eating. And his father's just like, okay.
saving money on groceries.
How many fucking red flags do these
I
people
know.
need?
I feel like they're in just such denial. But yeah,
It was the 50s. Well, at this point, the 70s.
Injects himself with rabbit blood, and his father comes back to the house and finds him on the floor, just completely out of it, super ill, and he has blood poisoning. But Richard thinks that he is sick because the rabbit had ingested battery acid.
Yeah.
And that's
That
why
happens.
he got
How
sick.
does your brain go? Just
Well, we've already covered his brain is not
Like-
normal.
yeah.
He's hospitalized at the Beverly Manor, which is a psychiatric hospital. He's committed there. This is it. He's diagnosed officially with paranoid schizophrenia, and he's suffering from somatic delusions. While he's institutionalized, he gets the nickname of Dracula
Accurate.
because he would kill birds and drink their blood.
And kept him in his room under his pillow.
Well, and he
Yes.
also would steal syringes from the nurses' carts, and then, I'm so sorry, puppies, he would take blood from the therapy dogs in the hospital and inject it into himself.
So one of Richard's delusions, I think we just need to really clarify on this, is he thought that he was losing blood constantly. He thought it was forever seeping out of him, that he didn't have enough of it.
It was dry enough.
And that he was being poisoned with a drug that would turn his blood into powder.
By the Nazis.
By the Nazis, because that's
What
what's
Nazis
happening.
do.
So, I mean, it's really important that we note that he truly believes that this is happening to him.
Yeah,
Like-
this is his reality. It is fact to
Yes.
him.
He
To
feels
him.
like he does not have a choice.
So the nurses are witnessing all this shit happening, right? But the doctors are like, he's totally getting better. It's fine. We're going to discharge him.
The nurses were like, no.
The nurses were like,
don't do
no,
it.
don't
do it.
Like, I just
fucking
pulled
do
a
this.
bird out from under his pillow yesterday. Sure, let him back out in the public.
Yeah, the nurses are like, absolutely not. But he's discharged anyway and given conservatorship
To his
his
mother.
parents.
Oh, just his mother.
Oh, just his mother?
Just his mother. He was given back to the custody of his mother, who didn't like the antidepressant meds that they had put him on because it made him a zombie, so she weaned him off of them.
Without any consultation from his doctors, and then no outpatient treatment, nothing. So she just weans him off these antipsychotics, and then it's just like, here you go.
By the way, here's your apartment.
Oh yeah, the conservatorship did not specifically state that he had to live with her, so she got him his own apartment because she didn't want him to live with her.
Yeah, Mother of the Year.
Obviously, this man was sick and he did these heinous things. But I'm not going to pretend that his parents and the system did not greatly enable this.
Oh, they failed him 100%.
Each support system that was around failed him. And it only exacerbated what his pre-existing conditions were.
And there were multiple occasions where someone should have been like, this isn't right. We should probably put him back in the hospital and keep him here. And they just failed him time and time again.
Yeah, I don't know if it on society's side of it, if it was purely budgetary or what, but y'all, you gotta be a different kind of fucked up to be injecting bunny blood.
Well, it gets better.
Yeah, it does.
So obviously Mom weaned him off of his meds. As you do. And he quickly started getting dogs, getting cats, getting rabbits from animal shelters, from classified ads.
I'm so sorry, vegans.
I'm sorry. There's so much puppy blood in this. He would take the animals to his apartment, which he now lived in alone, and he would make smoothies with Coca-Cola.
Nope.
Cool, crisp Coca-Cola.
Nope.
And kitty livers.
Don't like that.
And blood, and he would drink them. At this time,
uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
you don't want that smoothie?
No.
It's nutritious. It's got protein and Coca-Cola. Cool, crisp. I wonder, was this when Coca-Cola still had cocaine in it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe that helped the rabbit taste better.
Oh my god.
At this time, he also started to believe he was a reincarnated younger brother, which was the brothers that used to run with Jesse James's bank robbery gang.
Yeah.
Yeah, he thought he was the younger brother. Yeah.
I did not
The
hear
younger
that
of the two. Yeah.
That is fascinating.
But this
Yes.
is just more of his delusions coming to life. And I mean, you have to remember, during this entire time, he still believes he's losing blood. He still believes his blood is turning to powder. He still believes at some points in time he is walking around as a corpse. Like, he believes that he is dead and is up and walking around, and that he is seeping blood and he is losing it all the time. And that is why he is continually drinking blood, drinking organs.
He also thought that the Nazis were poisoning his soap. So at this point, he also stopped bathing, brushing his teeth.
I think it was, what was it? If he believed that if you lifted the bar of soap up and it was wet, you were good. But if you lifted the bar of soap up and it was dry, that means you were being poisoned.
Well, and this comes to play too later, because when he starts getting into his more violent streaks with the doors.
Yeah.
And he used to believe that if a door was locked, that meant he wasn't welcome, which helped feed into the vampire.
Yeah.
Because he also said if the door was unlocked, that meant he was allowed to come in.
Well, that's actually his modus operandi. The whole Dracula vampire thing.
So
Does this bring us to the cow? Are we
No,
at the cow?
we're not to the cow yet.
we're
We're
almost-
are you to Mom's
The
front
cow
yard?
is fascinating.
My notes are at Mom's front
you
yard.
can talk about Mom's
I'm
front
sorry.
yard.
This is just another indication of how I think his mom fucked up. So in 1977, we don't have an exact date for it, but he showed up at his mother's house and he rang the doorbell. So she opened the door and came out on the porch. He shoved a dead cat in her face.
It was her cat.
Oh, was it hers?
It was
I didn't
her
see
cat.
anything about it being
no,
hers.
I heard that she ignored the doorbell because she knew it was him.
She's like, I ain't got time
and she
for
was
this.
like, I don't want to deal with this shit today. So then
Like,
she
it's so much
hears.
better.
So then she
Well,
hears this
worse.
loud bang. So she flings the door open and he shoves her cat that he had shot in the head in her face. Like, I killed your cat.
See, I heard this story, but I didn't hear it like this. I heard that she walked in and he was in the room with the cat.
Nope.
It was her front yard. So he did that, shoved the cat in her face, and she just kind of stood there like, what the fuck? He then threw the cat out into the yard, tore it open with his bare hands, started smearing the blood all over him, eating it, while screaming, what I'm only picturing as a 70s horror movie scream. She just kind of goes, yeah, nope. Turns around, goes back in the house, shuts the door, and never reports this.
See,
Never
I
says
heard that, but I
anything.
heard it was his bedroom that this happened in.
And it just made me think of Christina's, nope, I'm out.
Nope.
I'm fucking out.
So then that leads us to his mom experiences this, right? Like, he kills the cat in front of her or in her front yard.
Rips it open.
So then she's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to help you plan a trip to Washington. That sounds like a great fucking idea. So she
Why don't you just take a trip, honey?
Nothing's like murder in the nation's capital. Or is it not Washington?
Washington State.
Okay.
Wrong Washington.
She literally gives him $1,400 and helps him buy a 1966 Ford Ranchero.
Ooh,
and
classy.
just sends him on his way.
Yeah, because she didn't want to fucking deal with him.
Well, he was there for 3 weeks, right? And he was on the Pyramid Lake Reservation in Nevada at this point. Yep. And someone reports that they see this Ford Ranchero stuck in the sand by the lake. So they go and they look in this truck.
The police do, yeah.
And it's covered in blood.
Oh, okay.
There's a cow liver in a bucket, but at this point they don't know it's a cow
Yeah.
liver. There's just an organ in a bucket.
Spoiler alert.
so
I'm just
there's-
real excited about the cow story.
I don't know why you're excited. This is horrifying. There's a pile of clothes. There's blood smeared on the truck. There's rifles in the truck. And there's no human to be found.
No sign of Richard. So they're kind of looking around, trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, Richard is watching this all happen. And they eventually
Just in the bushes.
They eventually spot him. He is butt-ass naked, covered in blood from head to toe, and is just watching them do this. Well, they eventually track him down and arrest him.
And they test the blood.
And first they ask him, like, why are you covered in blood?
This is my favorite part.
And Richard literally says, it was seeping out of me. It's my blood. It's seeping out of my body. And they're just like, okay.
Bird.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
So they arrest him. They test the blood in the liver and they find out it's an animal, aka your cow. They decide that, you know what? He's a Looney Tune. We're not gonna prosecute him. We're just gonna let's call your mom, Kay. And his mom drives and comes and gets him.
The cops were literally like, yeah, I don't got time for this.
No. So she comes and gets him, and he continues on with his killing spree of the dogs. He rescues them from the SPCA.
I hate that part.
And when he runs out of money to buy dogs, he steals his neighbor's dog, kills it, and then calls his neighbors to taunt them that he took their dog and killed it.
I just imagine it's like, you remember in Scream? And he's just like whispering, and he's just like, hey, I killed your dog.
I killed your dog.
Oh, yeah, that was really creepy. That was creepier than your phone sex operator voice.
Then, in December of 1977, he goes and buys another .22 caliber pistol. And when he goes to buy this pistol, they ask him, have you ever been in a mental institution? And he goes,
Nope.
absolutely not. I don't know what you're talking about.
And they're like, you look like an upstanding citizen.
We're going to sell you this pistol.
I mean, you're only 5'11" and you only weigh 140 pounds at this point. You look like Skeletor. Sure, here's a gun.
You don't look like you've ever been institutionalized.
America.
It's fine.
He didn't shove a dead cat in their face.
Although, to be fair, he did have to sit on a waiting period for a couple weeks. So,
Oh,
I mean,
a
there
sad
was
face.
that.
And then what did he do when he got his pistol for the first time?
So, when he got... Well, this is what I heard. So, his mom, the wonderful woman that she is, calls him and tells him that he is not allowed to come home for Christmas because his sister Pamela is fucking terrified of him.
Like, by the way, you're on your own because Dad's also remarried at this point and wants nothing to do with you, so have fun.
Funsies.
Bye.
So this apparently just sets Richard off as
it
if, he needed any more setting off.
Because what else do you do with a
So
psychotic
he
son?
goes and kills his first victim, which is Ambrose Griffin, who was a 51-year-old engineer. He literally drives past as this dude is in his driveway unloading groceries and pops 2 shots out of the car, and it kills him immediately. And Chase just, adios, bichachos.
Ambrose's wife thought that he had a heart attack because he just hit the ground.
Yep.
And then it was upon further investigation.
And the only clue the cops had was the shells from his pistol.
Which he had actually shot 2 days earlier. He had done another drive-by, unloaded into another house, but no one was injured. But they later tested the ballistics and it showed that it was the same
gun.
At this time, so this is the first major crime that the cops are aware of.
This was his first murder.
They, of course, didn't know that it was him. They thought it was going to be just your standard thrill
Killer, yeah.
Like they were going to picture
So
the fucking vampire Sacramento.
after this, he decides to start robbing houses because he needs cash, right? He needs to keep buying dogs.
Mommy can't keep funding killing the bunnies.
His blood is drying up, guys.
Oh,
this
God,
is a
yeah.
serious
This is
thing.
serious.
He needs your watch.
Highly suspect.
Highly super suspicious in the words of Bailey Sarian.
Ooh, I have a story before that.
Oh, go for it.
You didn't see the vandalizing that he did?
No.
Okay, so in January of 1978, I have a few, setting the scene stories for you.
Let's have it.
Set the mood.
So after he killed Ambrose, he began breaking into homes, like Chelsea said, stealing money and valuables because you gotta buy dogs. This is where he started to develop the mindset that if the door was unlocked, he was welcome. At one point, which this young couple had a young child, they're not named, they don't get killed, spoiler alert. They left their door unlocked. So he came in, vandalized their house, stole some, valuables. They arrived home while Chase was still in the house.
I did hear about this one.
He had urinated and defecated in the poor little kid's
Room.
in the dresser drawers.
This is super fascinating because this is how primal animals assert their dominance. He was essentially saying, I own you. Or it goes to show where his brain is functioning at.
Right.
This is a very primal thing that alpha males do in other animals and stuff. It's crazy.
Well, and then before the next topic, he actually ran into an old high school friend of his, Nancy Holden, and keep her in mind, she comes and play later. He was in a shopping center.
Yes.
And saw her and walked up to her and said, "Were you on the bike when Kurt died?" So
and
in
she's
high
like,
school-
who the fuck are you?
Yeah, because he looks
dis?
nothing like he did
No.
in high school. But Nancy Holden had been on her boyfriend Kurt's bike in high school, and he had wrecked and was killed. So this creeped Nancy the fuck out. She's like, who the fuck are you? So he ended up following her around for a little while. She was obviously seeing him following her, got a little creeped out, went to her car. He asked her for a ride. She goes, nope. Shuts the door and drives off.
Fucking
But-
finally a smart, forward-thinking woman.
Go, Nancy.
Good job.
She comes into play later.
Gold star for Nancy.
She's a badass. Okay, so this leads us to Chelsea.
Well, no, there was actually one more robbery. So he was robbing an elderly couple's home, and they come home while he's robbing them. So they walk in, the man sees him in their house. He books it out the back door, and this dude's like, fuck no, and starts chasing Richard. And Richard literally screams at him, I was just taking a shortcut, as if this man didn't see him in his house robbing them. So the dude finally is just like, fuck it, and gives up and goes home.
Well, yeah, he's older. He doesn't have the stamina
Yeah,
he
he
used to have.
can't really keep up. But can
He
we
was
just
just
talk about,
taking
like,
a shortcut
he was just taking a shortcut, bro.
through your, door instead of
Through your
going
living
around the
room.
house. Yeah.
It's just one more thing added to the pile of how the fuck did this guy not get
So
insanity.
we're still in January.
27 was a really busy year for this
So
dude.
keep in mind that his spree here
This was
in a
all
matter
within
of
a
like,
month.
yeah, this was all within a month when all of his victims were killed.
So
Goddamn.
that takes us to his second victim, Teresa Wallen, who was 22 and 12 weeks pregnant at the time of her death,
I
which
hate
is
this one
just
so much.
so sad. So Richard shoots her in the head and then stabs her multiple times with a butcher knife, cuts out her organs, and then uses a yogurt cup to scoop her blood out of her body and drink it. What the fuck?
But that's not even the worst part.
Go for it.
I don't want to.
You brought it up.
After he had stabbed her repeatedly, gutted her, taken out some of her organs, and drank her blood through a yogurt cup, he then returned, cut off her nipple, which I don't understand the thought process for Richard behind that, but a lot of what he did didn't make sense. And then in his final act of defilement, he went to the yard, picked up dog feces, returned, and shoved it down her mouth and throat.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that.
Her husband returned later to find her.
Yeah, her husband came home. The dog, the German Shepherd, came up to him whining. He knew something was wrong, and he was following dark stains in the house. He didn't know what they were, but they looked like buckets had been put down on the floor. So he goes to the house trying to find his wife because she's not there. He doesn't know where she's at, and he finally finds her in their bathroom and sees what had been done to her.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind that the only way that he was able to prey on Teresa was that she had been home alone and had went out to take out the garbage and had left her front door unlocked. And so Richard Chase had came in to rob her, and she came in and startled him, and he shot her 3 times, once in the hand as a defensive wound. She raised her hand to protect herself, and then twice in the head.
What makes him different from a lot of serial killers is serial killers actually don't usually use guns.
No.
They want to be very involved in the actual process of killing, where for him, this is, he wants to get that part over and done with as soon as possible so he can kind of experiment with the innards of people.
So the FBI would later classify him as a disorganized lust killer because he got off on the necrophilia part of it.
Right.
So
and the cannibalism part of it.
So like he wanted them to get dead as quick as possible so that he could get off on his thrill.
Yeah.
Right.
He was like, I don't need you alive for this. Like,
So keep in mind that he kills her on January 23rd. So on January 27th, this is only 4 days later, okay? 4 days.
Very clearly doesn't have a cooling off period.
He kills Evelyn Miro. I'm probably butchering. Miroth, her last name. She's 38. Kills her son Jason, who is 6. Her nephew David, who is only 22 months old. And her boyfriend Daniel Meredith, who is 52.
Evelyn and her son were home babysitting their 22-month-old nephew, David, and Dan had been there helping so that Evelyn could take a bath. So obviously they had left their front door unlocked. Richard Chase had entered through the front, and when Dan heard this, he approached him, and Chase shot him at point blank range. Richard Chase then stole his wallet and keys and proceeded to chase Jason, who had heard this and ran, because he's only 6. Was running to his mother's room. Chase followed him and shot him as well as 22-month-old David as he walked by.
So he shoots Evelyn.
Where she was in the bathroom.
When she was in the bathroom, cuts her open and takes multiple organs from her body, and then he has sex with her dead body.
Yeah.
And remember that whole erectile dysfunction thing? They actually found copious amounts of semen in her body.
Meaning he had sodomized her multiple times.
Oh my God.
And while he did so, he put cuts on the back of her neck and was drinking her blood while he was performing that. Yeah. Because you know now why they call him the Vampire of Sacramento?
Yeah, my God.
He takes baby David with him, which is fucked up. The neighbor actually sees him drive away in the car and calls the police because he's like,
well, little Jason's neighbor had a play date set up, and Jason didn't show up. Mm-hmm. So the neighbor girl came over to be like, hey, Jason, you ready to come play? And when she knocked on the door, it startled Chase. And he grabbed David's body and ran out, stole Dan's car. And the neighbor saw him and was able, he wore a very distinctive bright orange parka. So she was able to say, hey, you know, I saw this guy leaving. He was covered in blood in an orange parka.
Yep. So the next day, a citywide search was organized to find baby David. And because this was put out into the news, Nancy.
The FBI had actually released their profile of him at this point. So they stated that the suspect would be tall, malnourished, a loner, physically unclean. Who does that sound like?
Got this nail on the
spot
head.
on.
So Nancy goes, that sounds a lot like Richard Chase, who I just saw and chased me through the supermarket the other day. So she called in the tip, and within 5 days, they were at Chase's door.
Yep. So they arrived at Chase's door to ask questions, and there's no response. But hearing movement inside the apartment, police remained and listened. Chase eventually walked out with a small box in his hand. And when the police went after him, he threw the box at them, and then he was eventually tackled and
I'm sorry, I just got
arrested.
a visual of these police officers just like hardcore running and just like football linebacker tackling Richard Chase.
Well, in a documentary that I watched, one of the arresting police officers was talking about the emotions that they had going into this, because at this time they found all the other bodies.
Right.
They're blown away by what's happening, and they
realize
found David. That baby David is missing. And the police officer says to himself, the arresting police officer, if I get there and he's got the baby, I'm gonna fucking kill him. And, you know, obviously police officers are human beings. They're supposed to protect and serve. They're not supposed to be emotional. But how could you not be when you walk into that kind of scenario? When you're seeing this visceral...
Well, and it was such a short time frame. I think they were still hoping that they would find David alive, even though there was the evidence in the crib of where he had been, that there was a gunshot and that there was blood in the crib. So I think they were still holding out hope at that point.
Luckily, when they got him, they did not kill him. And I say luckily because justice needs to be served.
Agreed.
Yes.
So it wasn't until March of 1978 that they finally find baby David's body.
You're not going to go over what they found after they tackled him and then went into his apartment?
I mean, if you want to touch on it, you go right ahead, but it's just, it's so much. It's just so much.
I really want to set the tone for how bad this got with him.
We haven't set that tone.
This is a horror movie. This is a haunted house
All right.
Let's
Moment of silence, and let's have Tara just kind of unload.
Don't make that face, Christina.
Sorry, I chose the wrong word.
I won't go into all of the gory details, but there are going to be some gory details. So they tackled Chase, arrested him, and then they entered his apartment to search for what they hoped was David. What they found was absolutely horrifying. The apartment was literally covered in blood from floor to ceiling. Everything in the kitchen, there was a blender, utensils, plates, just coated in blood. There were hundreds of pet collars on the counter, as well as books about human biology and anatomy. And then what I found to be the most horrifying part, besides what they found in the fridge, that I'm not going to comment exactly what they found because that was pretty bad, they found a calendar that was marked with the word today on the dates of the previous murders, as well as 44 dates in the future that said today, meaning he had pre-planned 44 other dates to, break into homes and commit murder.
I wonder if there was not just planning the murders, but I wonder if he was mapping how long he felt he could live.
Yeah.
It's very possible.
Attacks.
Well, it escalated so quickly with him that maybe he thought his blood was drying up quicker. Maybe the Nazis were stealing it faster. I don't know.
I just can't, I don't see it as him being strategic on, like...
He just thought maybe I could make it to Tuesday before I need more.
Yeah, well, I don't see it as him saying, like, coolly, okay, I'm going to commit a murder on this day because I want to, like... I see it more
No,
as,
I don't
like,
think...
I need to eat.
Yeah, I don't think his brain could function that far. And one thing that I heard that was absolutely horrible is when the police asked him why he took baby David, his response was, I needed something to eat.
And I said I wasn't going to comment on what they found in the fridge. However, it does come into play with a topic we have for a little bit later. But they found a Tupperware container with brain matter from baby David, as well as other organs from Evelyn and David. And that comes into play because of the effects that eating human flesh can have on the body. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that he potentially ate this long enough to have these effects. But it's still pretty horrifying.
It is pretty horrifying.
Things that make you go, ugh.
They actually didn't find baby David until March. So, I mean, it was a whole month before they found his body. And they found him decapitated at a nearby church, and his body was in a box.
Yeah.
So we can just go to the trial, I guess. I mean, the trial was opened in January of 1979. He pleaded not guilty due to insanity, and both psychiatrists deemed him sane at all times of the crimes.
I vehemently disagree with this.
Oh!
Vehemently.
He knew what he was doing, but I don't think he knew that it was wrong because of the stuff going on in his brain.
I don't necessarily believe that he knew what he was doing.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about
Chelsea, break down
what schizophrenia is, because it is a very misunderstood mental illness. And I want to start off by first saying that not everyone who has schizophrenia is not a killer. They are not a serial killer. They are not inherently bad people. But schizophrenia left unchecked is enormously damaging. So paranoid schizophrenia is what he was diagnosed with, which is like a subset of just general schizophrenia. And this is characterized by predominantly positive symptoms of schizophrenia, which include delusions and hallucinations. And these symptoms blur the line between what is real and what isn't, which makes it very difficult for the person living with these delusions to know what is real and what isn't. But in their reality, everything is real.
Yeah, side note about the positive and negative that she's referring to. It doesn't mean good and bad.
No. Positive symptoms are the symptoms that are not normal parts of human functioning, where negative symptoms are normal parts of human functioning, but they are very exaggerated in people who suffer from schizophrenia. So the average age of the onset of schizophrenia I actually also find really interesting, because it happens between late adolescence to early adulthood. So very rarely are people diagnosed with schizophrenia before the age of 16 or after the age of 45. So if you look at when his symptoms really started to ramp up, he's right in that.
He's in his 20s.
Yeah, he's right in that area where that usually starts to become really predominant. And one thing that's interesting about schizophrenia is, I love schizophrenia. I'm not gonna lie. I did whole papers on this in school.
I wouldn't say you love schizophrenia.
It's my favorite mental disorder. Okay,
there we go.
It's my favorite.
Thank you.
I find it immensely fascinating that our brains can do this. That is why I love it. It's just fascinating to me. One of the things that I found interesting is there was research that thought that people who were predisposed to developing schizophrenia, if they smoked marijuana, it could actually trigger those genetics in your brain to make it come on. Whereas if you hadn't, you may not have developed it. Not saying that you totally wouldn't have, but you may not have.
It's like
Throw
a perfect
all
storm.
of this stuff together.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute shitstorm.
Oh, so much shit.
And then also some of the early symptoms of schizophrenia may seem like ordinary late teenager problems. This is socializing less often with friends, trouble sleeping, irritability, or dropping in grades, which, I mean, all of that could just be from him drinking and doing drugs. So, I mean, and that, when they start showing those early symptoms, that's when it's the most important to start looking for help, because you can kind of counteract some of the damage at that point. But, you know, he had all the negative symptoms too, which is an increasing lack of motivation, decreasing inability to pay attention, or social isolation. And then this is what I find really interesting. So there are distinct warning signs that like psychosis may be imminent. And so this is like at the worst part of schizophrenia. So we have all those symptoms before, right? Irritability, loss of socialization, all of that. This is the signs that, oh shit, stuff's about to happen.
It's gonna go down.
It's gonna go bad.
Is it Richard Chase?
Tell me how many of these you think Richard has.
We're going to check all the boxes.
Seeing, hearing, or tasting things that others do not.
Oh, that's one.
Check. Suspiciousness and a general fear of others' intentions.
True.
Check. Persistent and unusual thoughts or beliefs.
Yeah, gonna go with that one.
Difficulty thinking clearly.
Oh, yeah.
Withdrawing from family or friends.
Yeah, I don't think he ever even really had friends.
A significant decline in self-care.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
you go. That's it.
So he's literally
Nazis are 40 years
showing,
all of them.
he's literally showing all of these signs, and his family still took him off his medication that was literally keeping these violent tendencies in check.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if that had something to do with whatever mom had been diagnosed with.
I mean,
Because
it's
I could
very...
not find anything on her, so I almost wonder if she maybe had schizophrenia and it was caught and she was on medication.
They got divorced at 22, and she got divorced from her husband at. God, I fucked that up. I'll fix that later. Chase's mom and dad got divorced when he was 22 years old, and the reason that his mom cited for their divorce was she believed that his father was poisoning her. And guess what is a typical thing of paranoid schizophrenics is they believe that they're going to be poisoned by X many people.
I mean, and she may not have had schizophrenia. She may have just had a paranoia problem. I don't know.
But clearly that fed into Richard.
I mean, from what I read, that the fear of being poisoned by someone close to you is very prominent.
I feel like she functioned a little too well to have schizophrenia because she was making deliberate...
Well, but we don't know much about her. We know that
No.
she saw psychiatrists.
We do.
I was able to find that she saw at least 2 psychiatrists. So she could have very well been diagnosed and was on medication.
It's possible.
However, she did take Richard off of his, which makes me think that maybe she wasn't on it.
Who knows? I think there's something there that would be really cool to unpack, but unfortunately,
We just don't know anything about
don't
it.
know anymore. Okay, so what about going back to the trial? So we spoke a little bit about his diagnosis and what he has.
They deem him sane, which we all agree is just ridiculous because there's no way. Like, he shouldn't have just been thrown in prison. He should have been institutionalized for the rest of his life.
Yes.
And so the trial lasts for 4 months, and the jury only deliberated for 5 hours. And they sentenced him to death at the San Quentin State Prison, and he was supposed to be killed by gas chamber.
Oh, wow.
Because that was still,
a
thing in the 70s.
Fuck.
He was sent to the Vicaville State Hospital because they were having so many problems with his medications. And he was there for a short time, and then the hospital was like, okay,
You're too crazy for us. Bye.
we're going to send you on back now. His fellow inmates were aware of his crimes and were terrified of him. And they used to tell him all the time that he should kill himself.
They're like, just put yourself out of misery.
Kill yourself.
Just do it.
And on December 26th of 1980, he did just that. He overdosed on his antidepressants that he had been hoarding and killed himself.
Well, a little bit of my research told me that 25% of people diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia do actually end up committing suicide. It is the highest rate of suicide amongst mental illnesses.
And what's interesting, well, it's not interesting, it's kind of horrifying. Usually people who do have schizophrenia that kill themselves in very violent ways. Like really horrifying, awful
they
ways.
have paranoia and hallucinations and who knows what they're seeing.
Well, to take a trip down memory lane. When I was in high school, because I was in the medical program in high school, we had to do a research project at the end of our senior year. And we had to read a biography or an autobiography, and then we had to research the disease that was talked about in the biography. This is probably where my love of schizophrenia got started. So I read this book, and it was called Twin Minds, I think is what it was called. Hold on, I gotta Google this because I want to get it right. Oh, okay. It's called Divided Minds, Twin Sisters and Their Journey Through Schizophrenia. So it's identical twins. One sister has schizophrenia and the other doesn't. And it reads like a diary. One chapter will be from the sister without schizophrenia. The next chapter will be from the sister with schizophrenia. And it's the same timelines, just how one perceives it and one doesn't. Well, the sister with schizophrenia, it's heartbreaking. I mean, the way she explains stuff, the way she talks about like gray crinkled paper, and there's this gray crinkled paper and nobody knows what the fuck she's talking about. And her twin sister is kind of the only one who really like understands her and cares and wants her to get better. And she's on medication and then she's not, and then she's on it and then she's not, and she ends up killing herself by getting into her bathtub, pouring gasoline on herself and lighting herself on fire.
Oh my god.
Oh my word.
It's
Jesus.
a horrible story, and it broke my heart. And then I had to go and research schizophrenia after that to write this 20-page research paper on the disease.
If you are interested and want to learn more about this disorder, you can actually Google some things on
There's a lot of
TED Talks.
Yeah,
there are
really
some very
great
successful people with schizophrenia that do these awesome TED Talks, and they walk you through what it's like being someone with schizophrenia. I also played this video game, Senua's Story, and I want to talk about it because the whole point of the game was to actually emphasize what it was like to be someone with paranoid schizophrenia, but not the romanticized version of it. God bless these people who are able to seek treatment and get better and learn how to live the rest of their life with the voices, with the delusions, and navigate through that, because even playing the video game where the sounds, because you had to play it with headphones and all of that stuff made you really immersed in it, it created anxiety in me, the user, playing the fucking game. It wasn't even a scary game. Like, it was just constantly all the time, and it was in left ear, right ear, surround sound, and the voices were constantly competing, and some of them were being her cheerleader and lifting her up, and then other ones were paranoid and tearing her down. Ugh.
Well, when you have schizophrenia, you are not able to distinguish those voices from your own. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you hear someone chattering in your ear in a different voice. It is literally like your voice in your head convincing you that these things are real. And it's not even convincing you. It's just like, this is your reality.
Yeah.
And then if you mix that with your delusions or hallucinations, I mean, you're just, I mean, okay.
Disaster.
Perfect example, the movie A Beautiful Mind. He has schizophrenia.
That
is what he has. So he firmly believes that he is doing this work for the government, and that there's this little girl and this friend of his, and they're all hallucinations. None of it is real.
It's really hard to find a Hollywood film that doesn't play too hard on the tropes of mental illness, but that one was a good one. I remember that one.
That was a really well done movie, and I think it really showcased how immersive that mental disorder really is.
So, are we good for palate cleanser time?
Oh my god, please.
Palate cleanser, this is the palate cleanser. Na, 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 na.
Cannibalism sucks, y'all.
Cannibalism.
I've only got one joke.
Oh.
We're running out of serial killer memes.
Oh.
But this one's a good one. So, the first step to any murder is to have fun and be yourself. Okay, guys? So, like, you could ask Dean, how did it go? Fine, he's dead, and you're right. I do feel amazing.
Oh my God.
I mean, I've got one vampire Sacramento joke.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
What did Richard Chase say to his girlfriend?
Oh no.
See you next month.
Oh.
She wasn't ready. She wasn't ready. Holy shit.
Hold on, let me see if I can find some cannibalism memes.
Cannibal. Just 3. It doesn't even have to be a meme about him. We can just.
Any serial killer meme is great.
serial
If
killer
people make
meme.
you sick, you should try cooking them longer.
Oh no. Oh no. Or in Richard Chase's case, use more Coca-Cola. Maybe try Sundrop. Well, yeah, because I'm not even gonna lie, I feel like this guy's at least a 9 on the Dahmer scale.
Tara's not dropping the ball here. The rest of us are fucking forgetting our own damn thing.
I know your structure better than
I
you.
know your structure. God, that sounds naughty. I know your structure.
All right.
Well,
Anyways.
Richard Chase knew his structure.
Anyway.
That was the palate cleanser. There was smooth jazz in there at some point in time.
You'll put that in later. It's okay.
I don't know why I did the smooth jazz, but it definitely is a palate cleanser. Like, I can recover in that 30 seconds and just, smooth jazz.
So, now that we've covered all the good stuff.
Tara, since you're the special guest, I feel like we should ask you first, what do you rate him on the Dahmer scale?
How many Jeffreys?
I think he's a solid 9 Jeffreys.
I think that I'm like an 8.5, 9 Jeffreys.
I'm at an 8 Jeffreys.
Like on a cannibal scale, like he was there. he came. He was there. I set myself up.
I'm so uncomfortable.
I'm gonna eat more pizza now.
So, yeah, I mean, let's be real. This dude was pretty... I mean, okay.
Him's nasty.
It's not really his fault, but things that make you go...
Yeah.
Things that make me go, nope.
Nope.
Writing my notes for this, I just kept going, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm
Oh
at
my
work in my
God.
corporate office writing this nasty shit down.
Oh, yeah, I'm sitting at home, the baby's playing on the floor, Bo's
fine.
sitting on my lap, and I'm just like, doggy livers, and I'm like, oh my God, what the frick is happening?
Did you snuggle your puppers after that?
Yeah.
And I'm editing naked pictures of women listening to...
You're like,
know.
titties and oranges, here we go.
listening to him, necrophilia, old stiffy in the bathtub. So
Oh.
It's fine, everything's fine.
everything's fine.
Everything is awesome.
Professionalism.
Oh my God.
All right, so Tara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, this was so fun.
Thanks
We
for
got to
having me.
loosen up a little bit. The past 2 episodes have been super serious, but
I feel like this one, like, we really got to...
Fuck around.
Yeah, there was a lot of fuckery in this one, and I like
maximum fuckery. I'm fine with it.
Well, anytime you need a offbeat palate cleanser, I'm available.
If you would like to help support our podcast, the best way for you to do that is to leave a review on any of the places that you listen. And you can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Killer Tea. Join us next week on The Killer Tea while we explore the lesser-known kindly killer, Dennis Nielsen.
Let's be honest, Christina got these mics to start her singing career.
Oh my God, is this correct yet? Because I'm fucking ready to start this shit.
You're really loud. I'm gonna need you to calm down.
Bitch got pizza, she's happy.
Murder, 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 murder. Don't fucking spit on that mic.
I did it. I swallowed.
That's what she said.
Good dirty little hoe. I hope your mom listens to this episode because I'm going to put that one in.
The best way to support our podcast is to leave a review on any of the... Oh, fuck.
I just leaked.
And for the third motherfucking time, we cannot forget to say, please rate our podcast. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Because we keep forgetting it every time.